Today we are talking about indexed annuity mistakes to avoid. I'm Kate Phillips here with Finance Over 50 here with Scott McRae of the McRae Agency. Now, annuities are sometimes complex and often controversial financial products. Dave Ramsey, who earns money when you buy funds from his recommended advisors, mutual funds, he hates them. Some people love them. We are absolutely in an environment right now where sales of fixed indexed annuities are exploding. And I've asked Scott McRae, he is very much an annuity expert, to come here and help me tease out the pros, the cons, the mistakes to avoid. As we said in a recent class on risk-free retirement income, there are many types of annuities. Some of them we like, some not so much. Some really, it depends on your situation and your age, your circumstances, what else is in your portfolio. And an annuity, like I said, there's many types. It's just a contract that an investor makes with an insurance company. So there can be good ones, bad ones, ones that are right for your neighbor, but maybe wrong for you. And so, Scott, clue us in on some of the pros, like why is there a surge in sales of fixed index annuities right now? People are
Yeah.
putting these into their retirement picture.
First of all, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
and I'm not saying annuities are the only be all, of everything, but I think right now people are looking for safety and they've come
Mhm.
out with some new designs that allow you to have a lot of flexibility in these annuities. They're not the 20-year lock-in situations like they were years ago. So you can get into the same indices or index that you're in now, if it's the S&P or the NASDAQ or whatever, and still have the growth but also have a downside protection. And we go into that further in another video. But if you have the downside protection and you have the growth potential and the benefits of long-term care riders, things like that, they're very popular
Mhm, mhm. And
depending on your
especially
age.
popular, I'm imagining with people who are either about to retire or maybe they've already retired. And what I find right now is there are people who are just like too nervous to invest. Like they want the growth, but they end up like not sleeping at night if they've got too much of their money in the stock market.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, and I don't know if it's karma. I don't know what it is, but it seems like if I'm really sure about something in the market and I jump on it, that joker goes down the next day. I don't know what it is. So to me, if you've got some, like the seesaw we talk about, you've got some in the market, which is great depending on your age, but we also have some set aside with a personal pension flavor to it, to where we have a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year guarantee, maybe a 10-year guarantee, depending, in a participation rate that is really, really high. A lot of times that will outperform the market. So if you've got them both, you've got both ends covered. But we also have to look at how old you are, look at what you've got. Do you have real estate? Do you have mortgage notes? Do you have, what do you have now? Do we use this as a bond replacement? Do we use this as a growth move? So there's a lot of different things and a lot of different contracts that we have that really, if you do your due diligence, which I welcome you to do that, and we'll send you all the information you need, but they certainly can be a part of your financial future.
Well, let's talk about where people get into trouble. Like they hear that these are the best things since sliced bread, indexed annuities, but what are some of the mistakes that people can make getting into
Uh,
them?
that's a great question. Just like car sales, I mean, you've got people that know the engine, the body, the paint, the interior, everything about that car. Same thing with annuities. You've got guys that have been hired by whatever company, and they say this is the product for you to sell because that's the product that make the most money on, the company and the
Mhm.
agent. But if you look at it, is there a volatility control on that? What's the participation rate? Is a participation rate monthly? Is it annually, point to point? Is it 2 year point to point, 3 year point to point? How are those options being bought? What's the cost of those options? How are they allocated to you on a participation rate or a cap? A lot of them have caps as well. So there's so many moving parts. We really have to look at that thing and say, this works for me, and here's why.
And generally, if people have a choice between a cap or a participation rate, is there, or both, is there
Right.
something they should be, looking
Uh,
out for?
Historically, the participation rate has always outperformed the cap for me. I'm sure there may be a situation where that's not true. But if you have a cap of 10%, that sounds wonderful. You can get up to 10%. But if the market did 20 that year, you get 10%. But if you have a 50% participation rate, yeah, the market did 20, you still get your 10. But if it does 21, then you get 11. If it does 25, then you get 12. So I like the participation rate because it will climb with what the market does. So anytime we can get like a 50%, 60%, 70% participation rate, that's huge on an annuity. And then have an annual point to point or a 2 year point to point where it locks in your gain each year. So that way, if the market crashes the next year, not only do you have downside protection, but everything is locked into that point in time. So if you were to
Mhm.
pass away, that goes to your heirs. They don't go back to the start of the annuity and just guarantee your premium back. So there's so many things that could go wrong in your contract that you have to look out for.
What kind of choices do people get in terms of the index they choose? And is that an area where people can make a mistake with choosing the wrong index?
Yes, I mean, there's the S&P, and a lot of these are sub accounts to where they're tracking the S&P, tracking the Nasdaq, tracking whatever, and there's a ton of them you can choose from. And a lot of these annuities, we might split it up into 5 different indices, depending on what you're wanting to do. So you may have 20% in 5 different ones, and we'll talk about that. And you can study that. We'll study it together and why you might want to do that. If you're really high on the S&P, the dynamic, whatever it might be, and you feel good about that, that's good for you. On one of mine, I put half in the S&P dynamic and half in the Nasdaq, and it's done very well. So the participation rate on that contract was really good too. So we have to really choose, look, investigate, do our due diligence to make sure you're not locking yourself into something that's 10 or 20 years of misery.
So, am I hearing you that you can actually have a couple of different indexes? Like you could do international and
Mhm.
domestic,
Correct. Yeah,
both of them.
they'll all be inside the same contract. So
Mhm.
when you look, you'll have a lot of different options, and you can reset those options annually or every 2 years, depending on what your contract says. So if you want to make a change, you certainly can move to another indices.
Got it. And with the downside protection, it seems to me that you wouldn't want like a super conservative index, like a bond fund or something like that. Does that just limit your
Yeah, and if you
capacity?
think about it, because people start thinking about these indices and they think about them live in the market. These
Yeah.
aren't live in the market; these are sub accounts. So if you have downside protection and you're in the S&P or tracking the S&P, and the volatility control is low. And I know this is getting too deep. We'll talk about this too. But if the market is lower and they have a volatility control, they'll raise it to give you more of that lower market. But if the market gets volatile, they'll pull it back for safety and the options are cheaper or less expensive. So that will limit you. So if the market does 15, you may only end up with 5. So depending on the volatility control is another thing you have to look at. So there's a lot of different levers that you have to know. So when you find an agent, find one that's experienced and then go with him through the process of investigating what you're about to purchase. Don't just go, oh, I love it. It's fancy. I love the bells and whistles. Look at the volatility control. Look at the participation rate. Look at the cap. Look at everything about that contract. Is there a fee? Is there not a fee? Is there an income rider? Is there a death benefit? There's a lot of things that need to be considered when buying an annuity, or it could go wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like one of the tasks is really figuring out like what's important to you.
Correct.
I know for some folks that having like long-term care benefit riders is really important because maybe your financial picture is missing that. So if you're adding an annuity to your portfolio, that's your opportunity. Are there companies you won't work with in this space?
Um, that's a good question. Over the years, I've seen some great, huge companies that have great products that had a product or two that wasn't so good.
Mm,
But the commission was really high and it made
Mhm.
the insurance company money, and it made the agent money. And we won't go into all those, but one
Yeah, we don't
example.
need to name them.
Yeah, but one of them
I
was
don't
a
want any legal trouble.
yeah, one of them was a two-tier product. It had a good participation rate, a good cap, whatever, but it was a 10-year product. But you couldn't end it in 10 years. You had to move on to annuitization in 10 years. You could never take your money out. But it looked great at first.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
mean, whether 2-year, 3-year, 10-year, I don't want a lifetime annuity unless I choose a lifetime annuity.
yeah.
If they're going to give me 10% for the rest of my life and my wife's life forever, and it's guaranteed with a 200-year-old life insurance company, maybe I do that. Maybe that's what I want to do at the time. Or maybe I want to grow some money outside of that. But yeah, we have to look at each one because even though the company may be big and strong, some of the product designs at the time may not be.
Got it. You can tell that we dove into the deep end
Yeah,
here
I'm
with
sorry.
Scott
I'm sorry.
because and that's perfect because you need somebody who can understand. I've read the illustrations and they're very intriguing products. I know people who have owned them who have absolutely loved their indexed annuities, and I've known other policies that maybe haven't performed as people hoped that they would or thought that they would. So I think it is really important to kind of understand what you're getting into. Is it really a fit for you? Tell me about like what are some of the issues that you find when people they're getting sold something. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, are there people out there selling annuities that don't understand them, and what are they missing? What's missing in their education about them?
And that's a wonderful question. And just like anything else, like we talked about the vehicles, cars, you have to want to learn this because it's a lot. So
Mhm.
if you're in it long term, you're not trying to make a quick buck. You may not make as much commission on that product because they're only going to pay you one time. There's no fee going forward. So
Mhm.
the client never pays you anything. The company pays you one time, and that's it. So you have to look at it's okay. I'm going to do what's best for my client, and here's why. So when we're looking at those things, you really have to be cognizant of what they are, what they're doing for the client, what they're doing for the agent, because the agent, if they see a huge commission and they have a manager that's pushing that product, they don't really know anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't investigated. Maybe their company doesn't sell that anything but that product. So if you have a
Hmm.
broker that sells everything in the world, and I do mean worldwide, not just countrywide, then you have all the options, and he'll run a spreadsheet for you and go, here's what here's 100 annuities, but here's the top five, and here's why I like them. So instead of studying
Uh,
everything, let's go in depth on these five or these three. Do you like
yeah.
Mass Mutual
Yeah.
better? Do you like Prudential better? Do you like Lafayette better? Here's what I like. Here's the financials on those companies. There's legal reserve system as well, so that's not really that big a deal. But the design of those products and the guarantees of those products and the participation rates, the volatility control, everything we've talked about has to go into that factor.
Yeah.
And a lot of agents aren't going to do that. And their managers aren't going to teach them that.
Mm. I see like Wells Fargo and some of these big brokerage houses, they're selling them now. And I do wonder, like, the folks selling them, do they really understand the products enough?
It's not
Because
their fault. It's not their fault. I mean,
for
they're in accumulation mode. They want you to
Mhm.
put as much in those funds as you can put in, let it accumulate for 20, 30 years, pay the fee, 1-2% fee, whatever it might be. And that's what they do, and that's how they make their living. And that's fine. But at certain ages, you've got to start thinking, I need benefits simultaneously with my growth. How,
Yeah,
how do I balance this? So we balance it like that. So that's why we call it a good bond replacement sometimes. Because
mhm,
if you're
mhm.
making 7-8% on your annuity and 4 or 5% on your bond, and the bond has no benefits whatsoever, it doesn't have a long-term care rider, doesn't have a death benefit, doesn't have income rider, anything like that, maybe the annuity is a good bond replacement, and you still have money
Yeah.
in the pocket. So there's a lot of different aspects to this deal.
There was really interesting research that came out, I think, in 2024, College of Financial Services and BlackRock around. It was really a look at behaviorally how retirees behaved when they had like maybe your typical, mostly stock-based portfolio versus having guaranteed income, could be pension, could be annuity, could be Social Security, and they found that people were afraid to spend. It wasn't that they had less money, it's that they had less certainty and they were
Yes.
afraid to spend if they had a market-based portfolio. And I just talked to somebody yesterday who had two grandmothers that both hit age 100.
Wow.
Well, and she may or may not be on that same path, but that longevity, longevity is normally a risk if we're looking at from a stock market perspective, but from an annuity perspective, longevity is like they're going to keep paying and keep
Yeah.
paying if you've got that lifetime income rider. So I can see why you want to balance those things out. You can have some liquidity, some growth, and then having that guarantee. Apparently, there's a pretty strong psychological benefit. I know my mom knows exactly, she's got a pension, she's got Social Security, and she knows exactly what she can spend every month. So she's not, waking up in the morning and checking the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, it's scary. And of course, there's so many examples that I could tell you about. I know we have limited time, but a lot of people were taking their RMDs from their mutual funds.
Required
And
minimum
their mutual funds
distributions,
weren't
just
keeping up
to.
with the RMDs because RMDs had reached 5 or 6%. So
Mhm,
their account
mhm.
was going down. And when we ran the analysis on it, they were going to run out of money by age 88, 89.
Ah,
And they were already 78.
not
That's
good.
that's pretty scary. So we called several companies and found some income riders that would take that money and guarantee them 8% for both he and his wife, joint income for the rest of both their lives. And it added about $1.5 million. The longer they live, the
Wow.
better they are because they get into the insurance company's money. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, they would have ran out at 80 or something, 89, whatever it was. But now they could go to 150. Doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's what
That's
I tell people about, I've done marketing, writing for life insurance companies before. I used to actually work for Guardian Life for a while. And one of the ahas that I've had with life insurance companies and why, I mean, I'm a fan of life insurance for a lot of ways. I love the stock market too. I love both sides. But with life insurance, it was explained to me this way that life insurance is a guarantee you don't die too soon, and annuities guarantee that you don't live too long.
I like
And
that.
so the,
Yeah,
the company plays, they use their actuarial science and they play both sides. And I think as investors, we need to learn to play both sides as well so that we're
absolutely.
protecting ourselves either way. Well, this is once again, I'm Kate Phillips. This is Scott McRae from the McRae Agency. I'm going to have all the contact information. You'll find that in the description. We also have a replay of a cool class that we did on risk-free retirement income, and we're going to be doing our next class July 16th. It's going to be a little different topic. We're looking at reducing costs and especially taxes and IRMA. IRMA stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. I finally got that right.
That's pretty close.
So just leave a comment if you want to know about income. I can send you that replay if you want a free ticket to come to our class on the 16th around reducing costs and IRMA. Just leave a comment, and we will get you hooked up. Thanks for being here with us, Scott. And we'd love to know your questions here. We are all about answering your questions, providing solutions here on Finance Over 50. So if there's a question you want us to answer, let us know.
Thank you,
Take
Kate.
care.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you being here.